All right, welcome everyone. We are live at CGT Studios here in Los Angeles, California. I'm Edward Earl, and we are on the set of Grow. What we want to do today is we are here live in the studio, obviously with a CEO audience, and we are broadcasting live throughout the internet, the show. And today's topic for this hour, we're going to talk about writing powerful ads that generate lots of clients, lots of qualified prospects, and there's some strategies to doing that I think that most people aren't familiar with. And so before we get into the content, let me welcome some of the dealers from Ice Cables and Brian Rizzo's crew. We appreciate you guys being on. And what I want to do is part of the discussion this morning for the last hour and a half with the CEOs in the room is we were discussing the significance of being here every single month as a CEO and what they're working through, and then getting them out of the office and running the daily operations in their organization, and how difficult it is sometimes to break away, because it's tough when you're in running an organization and you've got to find time to break away, not only for personal private time and reflection, but just your own normal everyday life to kind of maintain some semblance or quality of life. But part of the problem is breaking away to technically work on the business. And you've heard that old adage that we are, as entrepreneurs, famous for working in the business, but not necessarily on the business. And as we discuss some of these things, one of the topics came up about the material that I've been working with and producing for the last 20 years, and especially hot and heavy, this concept of disruptive transcendence over the last 4 years, patriarchal marketing, the Brand Buddy program, things like that. And one of the problems that happens for most of the CEOs for small and mid-sized companies is this. They are given the opportunity to really take away the marketplace that they want, to significantly compete with the larger organizations, but the problem is that they never do. And they've got that space and time that they, as kind of guerrilla warfare organizations, can sneak in the back door of these bigger organizations and take over market share at will. It doesn't cost the same kind of money. They don't have to invest the same kind of money. And it really doesn't take the same effort, because these big organizations are sleeping giants. And in reality, the people that they're hiring usually to run their marketing and their advertising, they may have degrees, but they're not street savvy and they're not qualified, and they're not there every single day on the street doing all of this kind of information. So more than anything in the world, the small and mid-sized business owners have the ability to take over the market share. But the problem always is philosophically, they are not innovators, nor are they early adopters. Most people, even if they're entrepreneurs or business owners, what ends up happening is they act like in their business the same way that they personally buy. So if they're late majority buyers, what ends up happening is they run the marketing and advertising of their organization like a late majority buyer. So what I find in teaching organizations for years is it'll take them 3 to 5 years to finally get to a point where they understand and initially start to birth or implement some of this content. The problem with that is it takes 3 to 5 years for the rest of the industry to figure that out. And once they figure it out, you as the small and mid-sized business owner have already lost your advantage, and the big organizations have figured it out, and then they come in with hundreds of millions and billions of dollars in advertising and pretty much destroy you. You've lost the very advantage that you have of being small and unseen and undetectable. And so part of what happens is that we have to adjust and overcome that philosophically before any of the material that we teach here will actually benefit you and do you any good. And secondly, one of the other things that's happened is you're watching paradigms flip all the time. Okay, sometimes it used to take 20 to 40 years for a paradigm to shift. Something happening that's working really well, once it goes through the early majority and the late majority and then the laggards, what ends up happening is what? That thing flips and the majority is going this way, and then the other thing that didn't work actually is now working again because it's in opposition to the mass. So what happens is that just keeps going, but the time frame for those switches and paradigm shifts to keep flipping over and over again, the cycle is reducing itself in its time space. So what's happening is normally that would take 20 to 40 years. Now we're back down to about a 3 to 5 year cycle. So that's a problem. So what's happening now is we've been teaching big oriented type branding the way that I do it in my book, Only the Brands Will Survive, and You're the Only Logo for Me, and Get Branded Live, which is another version of this kind of a show where we teach the powerful formats of branding that I talk about, how to get the big Fortune 500 power of credibility brands without the expense and without the time in the marketplace. I've been teaching that for about 8 years now. And in doing that, It's taken a lot of clients that amount of time to get to that point, to create the types of email campaigns, to create the types of websites, the EdSite format that we talk about, the brands that we talk about. And now what's happening is the big guys are starting to figure out those strategies, and all of a sudden the paradigm, the mass is going that way, now the paradigm is shifted. So it's now going back to those same kinds of copywriting strategies that I introduced with my first book, Monopolize Your Marketplace, probably 20 years ago. And so those things are starting to shift. So what's happening is you're watching business people get to a point where they finally figure out the last paradigm, and then what's happening is the new ones happen, and they're always on the tail end of the old paradigm, and they're never on top of the new one. So you're always behind. So one of the things I want to advise you, please, is pay attention to what we're doing, because it's your business. You're the one that's spending the money. You're the one that's spending the time out there in the marketplace. Why don't you get the results that you want? And let's just check our ego a little bit and get to a point where we actually understand why things work, why strategies drive the way that they do, and be a little more connected with the marketplace so we understand how to get in tune with them. So that being said, let's talk about writing ads. This is a very simple process that creates powerful ads that work. And the reasons why that's important is because no matter what you're doing, you're writing some kind of marketing and advertising. And those elements, they're varied. I've identified about 185 different elements. We're not obviously going to talk about that many. We're going to talk about a few, and this is just a general overview. Obviously, after this, the broadcast is available in audio. It's available in video. And the tools that we're talking about are going to be emailed to you, and you can download those afterwards to use them. So as we talk about writing powerful ads that work, we're going to talk about marketplace analytics. We're going to talk about competitive ads. We're also going to talk about what's wrong with these particular ads and why they don't work. We're going to talk about a powerful ad building process, from strategy, what I call advertising strategy, to headlines and body copy, and then design. We won't discuss it in great detail. I'll show you some examples, both good and bad, and then we've created a little bit of a design piece to give you and illustrate an example of how an ad should come together. Okay? So that being said, let's go through this and apply this to your own organization. And we are using the cable and the home automation industry as a whole as the basis for the example today. So let's talk about marketplace analytics. And it's interesting, having done this and having hundreds and hundreds of thousands of CEOs of small and mid-sized companies come through our programs and seminars all over the world. And prior to this, having 2,200 consultants in North America and about 3.5 million CEOs on our database that we were mailing to on a consistent basis, we built the largest private marketing consulting advertising agency in the world. And so in doing that, the one thing that's always been interesting to me for small and mid-sized companies is when you sit down and you really start to ask them, what is it that your marketplace really wants? Are you customer-centric? The reality is, for most of them, and when I say most, I really mean 95% plus, the answer is no. We just don't pay attention. I think a lot of times as small and mid-sized business owners, we see an opportunity to not be employed by somebody else, to do the same work and keep the money ourselves, and we go out there with not a lot of forethought to the actual driving of a business. More, we're in tune with the ability to fulfill the business that we have, how to do the installation, how to do the service, how to do the repairs, how to manufacture the product, possibly even how to sell it, or at least put sales guys on the street or on the phone. But we never think about how to brand and how to market, how to drive traffic and take over market share. And we definitely don't ever think about innovative paradigms shifting as the marketplace is futuristically going that way. We don't think about things like that. So let's talk about what's most important to your prospective clients. And no matter what kind of CEO you are, it doesn't matter whether you're in the cable industry, the home automation installation industry, whether you're roofing clients, entertainment. Those are the kinds of CEOs we have in the room today. You have to ask yourself, what things do they want the most, your particular customer? I know from my clients who are CEOs exclusively, no sales organizations, no sales reps, no marketing people, strict CEOs that wear an enormous number of hats spread throughout all the departments of the organization. The thing that's most important to them, when it's all said and done, and sometimes to their detriment, okay, they want results, meaning they want the revenue of the organization to go up. They want to drive sales positively. What affects that? They want better margins. They want less liability in their manufacturing and their service. Essentially, they want kind of their cake and eat it too. But the one thing that kills my CEOs and my clients, and think about this from your own perspective, is they want things fast and they want it now. And the problem is, because they're wearing so many hats, they kind of don't get to a point where they'll spend the time they need to learn what positively drives the organization. So they concern themselves with the machine itself, but they never think about the guy that technically is going to be driving that machine around the racetrack. We never think about that. That's the marketing and the sales, what drives the organization. So the problem that I've always had is, how do you deliver quality information that alters the face of an organization for my clients, but do it in such a way that meets their time frame, i.e., they don't want to come to seminars, they don't want to spend the time, they don't want to read, they don't want to do anything like that. And so that, in reality, is they don't have time. So they're their own worst enemy. There's no way for them to get access to the kind of information that they need, and the reason why they can't is because they won't take the time. And rightfully so, they can't take the time because they're sandwiched in between a hard place and a rock. They don't have any time. You know, these CEOs are working 6, 7 days a week, and they're working, and they're not at work, they're at home working, they're thinking, they're processing. When they're driving around with their family, they're thinking, they're processing, they're taking calls, they're stressed, they're worried, so on and so forth. So in my scenario, trying to figure out how to get information to them that works and that drives positive changes in their organization is a difficult thing to do in a relatively short period of time. You've got to take advantage of those types of opportunities that they're already a part of, instead of trying to make them make time or carve time out of their already busy schedule. And I've been able to do that by taking not only books, but putting my books on audio, back then audio tape, then audio CD, now on audio CD, and of course MP3. And so between doing all of that, all of a sudden my guys have got an ability, while they're driving to work or driving home from work or driving around checking on their manufacturing, instead of listening to the radio or maybe getting off the phone a little bit, which sometimes they like to do, now they can take that stuff and they can actually listen and pay attention. And what's nice about that, and what's been nice about that for my organization, is I have their undivided attention the whole entire time. So when I first started doing this, as an example, I created an audio tape that had 24 minutes on one side and 24 minutes on the other side, and it had my first book available on that, at least snippets of it, and at least the core parts of the content. And the reason why 24 minutes is, through marketplace analytics, I found out that the average CEO's ride time from the house to the office was under 30 minutes. So I set it right at about 24 minutes. And so that way a guy could listen to half of it on the way in and go, wow, I really like that. On the way home, listen to it. And what I found out, as soon as I was making that available to them, that ability to get heavy, heavy content in a very short time frame, but do it in a way that was easy and didn't have them carve out time from their already busy schedule, people started ordering that like crazy. And what happened was it was so in the face of everybody in my industry, because authors and content creators, what are called IP creators, intellectual property, all of us, we sell our content. We sell our books. We sell our tapes. If you've ever been to a Zig Ziglar seminar, these guys speak at the front of the room on the big stage. There's 1,000 guys in the back, and we make a big pitch, and there's a big rush to the back for somebody to spend $100, $500, $1,000 to buy our books and tapes. I flipped the switch on that in my industry, and I started giving that away. So when CEOs were used to buying that kind of material, and I was offering it to them, and it was brand strong, the information was credible, it was critical, it was powerful, and I was giving that away to them for nothing, and even at that time paying the shipping, they just had to make a phone call, or as the internet got more available, they would order that, and we would just send it out to them. But I got to spend 1 hour undivided attention with a CEO. It just happened to be in the form of me on an audio cassette or a CD, now an MP3, and in their actual car. And one of the things I want you to know, when you understand your marketplace analytics, it's important. People used to ask me all the time, how come you don't take your CDs and put them on MP3? And we were doing that for the longest time on CDs, and we still do. And the reason why is because the average age of a CEO that can make the decision in my favor, as far as the kind of buying decision that my organization requires, these are guys that didn't have MP3 hookups for their iPods in their cars. They were still operating on CDs. And so I kept running that for years and years and years on CD, and on my CEOs kept doing it. So you have to remember your business analytics all the time. You may think the marketplace wants something because the trends are heading that way, but a lot of times if you pay attention to what your marketplace is really doing, you'll find out that they probably aren't a part of that trend. And for my CEOs, they weren't. So we kept sending CDs, and to this day, we still do. In fact, we find it's more effective to send the CD than it is to offer the MP3, because most of the time when they download it, They download it on their desktop, and which is funny. You'd think it'd be a laptop, but it's not. It's generally their desktop. And then they have to listen to it. And they have to sit there and listen to it at the desk at work. They won't. They'll get distracted by everything else that's going on. And the CD is one of those singular things that they'll go home, they'll put it in the car. We still want them to listen to it in the vehicle. Now, of course, over the next 5 years, that'll change. But for right now, from our marketplace, they're not buying into the general trend. It hasn't transferred over yet. So that being said, pay attention to your business analytics. If you look at what happens in the home automation, distributed audio, distributed video, so on and so forth, security, what do prospects want the most? The thing you have to understand more than anything in the world is that your prospects are absolutely 100% confused. You guys have one of the most confusing industries that there is possible. And the problem with it is it's centered around the ability for people to have quality entertainment and convenience and effectiveness and efficiency there at their house. I am a typical client all the way across the board. I've implemented and installed these kinds of systems into smaller homes when I wasn't as successful, and upwards of $250,000 installations in some of my bigger homes. And of course my offices and things like that. We've installed things at the ranch and 12-acre properties where I've wanted this information going all the way down to barns all over the place, just because of the nature of how the property was set up. I wanted stuff that went from the general core of the house out to the swimming pool, out to the tennis courts, out to the football, baseball fields, the workshops, the music studio, everything under the sun. So I understand when I'm sitting there looking at something that's going to be a $300,000 installation, looking at that going, I don't have the foggiest clue what I'm supposed to buy. And at that level, not only do I not understand components, I don't understand the guts and the skeletal process that holds that whole structure up, that framework. And the thing for someone in that circumstance when they're confused is they don't generally trust, even though they want to, the salespeople that are out there, knowing that the salespeople are working within their own best interest, not necessarily in the interest of the actual customer and the results that they want. So therefore, realize that your customers are totally confused by the thousands of different components and the way that you could install and the way that the thing can be configured, so on and so forth, not to mention just the general quality of the installation itself. These people don't come from that industry. And what drives them and what makes them make the kinds of decisional mistakes that they make is that the result that they want to achieve is so emotionally positive for them that they're kind of enamored by big, huge flat screen TVs and monitors and the ability to make voices appear out of nowhere. You know, that kind of stuff is exciting to people. And not to mention, generally, if a guy's doing it, it's competition against his buddies, and he's going to have a better system. He'll obviously show it off every time he has a party, and so on and so forth. And so that drives that, and it causes people to make mistakes. The problem is your industry is riddled with so many competitors that you all say about the same thing, and you sound exactly the same. And I know that because we've just done an enormous amount of competitive intelligence in your industry, calling people like you guys, the dealers, installers, retail spaces, and recording the sales presentations. And every single one of them sound the same, whether it's one guy working out of his trunk or he's coming right out of Best Buy. It doesn't make any difference. All of the information sounds identical. It's all the big, huge sales pitch with no real opinions about anything, and if so, things that I couldn't validate one way or the other. All right? So what are some of the biggest problems that they have in dealing with your industry? We've talked a little bit about that. Most of it has to do with the fact that is all this stuff going to work? Is all this stuff going to work when I want it to work? Am I going to be able to figure out how to make it work? Is my spouse, my kids, or whoever else is using the system going to figure it out? And if I spend that much money, damn it, this stuff better work. All right? And half the time, I know when I did it, I didn't have the foggiest clue how all this stuff went together. Okay? Obviously, technology has changed, but that makes it even more confusing. All right? And then ask yourself, does your advertising and marketing communicate those advantages and your level of expertise? Does it communicate those things effectively? And most of the time, the answer is no. For example, on this little graphic, if you're not confused, you're not paying attention. Guys, in your industry specifically, as with any industry, people are absolutely 100% confused. There are too many options. And all of the people out there doing marketing and advertising and selling are all saying the exact same thing. They sound exactly the same. Not to mention the brands become very untrustworthy. This is a seemingly professional looking brand, except it's got a font that comes right out of a standard font that's actually a font for a very well-known product and company. But you know what? They steal it and rip it off anyway, so automatically they look like a copycat. Bad branding, all right? And then, of course, the D and the R, and we get it. This is where you plug stuff in. We understand that that's a play button because we stuck it in the middle of the D because we think that it's going to say play. You realize that you're talking to somebody who wants to put in a $30,000, $10,000, $100,000, $250,000 system. Guys, these people drive nice cars. They don't drive knockoff versions of those cars. So when you put together shitty branding like this, excuse me, this is my show, I can say that stuff. Okay, if you put together stuff like that, I can assure you your clients look at that and go, I'm going to spend how much money with this guy? And we never think about that because we just don't pay attention to it. But it's critical and it's important, all right? Look at this particular ad. I pulled all these kinds of ads off the internet. Now, these things look nice. Of course, we know that these aren't their installations, all right? And you look at that, and guy on the bottom, we've got all these rack mounting systems. Do you really think a particular client looks at that and says, wow, metal racks to mount stuff? I think he kind of already gets the point. You look at this over fireplace installations, commercial installations, wall mounted included, 149, so on and so forth. See, and guys will call this organization. That's who you're competing against. You may be someone just like this. But I can tell you, people look at this and they still don't have the foggiest clue what any of that actually means. So you're killing yourself by driving price this way. You think that's what you have to do, but trust me, you don't. Psychologically, the mind can't figure out the right information and then make the next best decision. It has to make the best decision based on all of the parameters that are included in that decision, the money that they have, the time frame that they have, so on, and the information that they have. Given all those parameters, it'll make the best decision possible. And price, almost without exception, is never the best decision. And since everybody's driving that way, it just muddles the waters even more. Okay? LCD plasma TV mounting super special $299. I thought that was $199 or $149. What's the difference? Limited time only. Well, who really cares if it's limited time only at $300 when this guy's half price all the time? Same area. Completely connected audio video. 15 years experience in audio video technologies. All right? Includes brackets, HDMI cables, mount television and conceal wires in the wall. How are they really going to do that? Are they going to rip the wall out and then replaster it back, repaint it? I highly doubt it for $300. Free tutorials, free expert advice, set up 3 video sources in television, so on and so forth. Nobody even understands, but you get the concept that, hey, for $300, my house is going to look like that, which is, of course, not true. Not to mention, if you look at the advertising, it's so cheesy. You're asking people to spend money, and this TV might be $5,000, $6,000, and that's all the effort that you put into your ad. You wonder why people don't trust the people in this industry, because you're in an industry where everything is generally expensive and gorgeous and entertainment-oriented and full of fashion and style, yet this is what we produce for advertising. There's a reason why it doesn't work, okay? AV Pros, this is a nice, attempt on that. Fonts are a little bit better. I don't know that the colors really matter. This is kind of interesting. There's the TV that you want. There's the wall mount for it. There's one. There's a premium installation for $250. I don't really know the difference, and nobody's going to read that to pay attention from $199 to $350. Deluxe installation. Okay, that's nice. At least it's a little better version of that. We still don't know when you put that on the wall, how do we make sure that it stays on the wall? What kind of damage do you do to the existing exterior? We don't know that kind of stuff. Those are things that people wonder about. And here's the thing. When you're only giving them these kinds of pieces of information to make the decision on, that's what they'll make the decision based on. It doesn't mean that they're not worried about all this other stuff. It just means if all the ads are running like that, then that's all the information the marketplace is given to make a decision. The minute you start introducing the right kinds of information based on what they're really concerned about and what's really important to them, all of a sudden they'll go, okay, that's price, that's great, but what I'm also concerned about is these 4 other things. And as soon as you start introducing that into your advertising, then all of a sudden people start paying attention to you. Okay? Catch every moment of your world. Cup matches with comfort and home. Obviously, they're marketing people who want to watch soccer games. Okay, here's our World Cup offer centered around that. And it comes down, and here's all the different types of brands that they carry: boardrooms, auditorium, discotheque, nightclub. That's probably a more commercial-oriented organization. We're open on Sunday. Didn't actually know that they had a space, a retail space. So Neon Home Theater Systems. Big deal. There's really nothing there that distinguishes them from anyone else. This starts to look a lot more professional. Czar Audio Video. I don't get this whole Czar thing, but, whatever. Basic custom home and theater, sales, design, installation, multi-zone audio and video, smart home automation control. Monrovia, Pasadena. I don't even know how that's pronounced. Monrovia, I don't have a clue. Okay. All that stuff looks absolutely gorgeous. You don't know if those are their actual installations. They're saying or kind of precluding that the fact that they are intimating that they are their installations, but most likely highly doubtful. Because if so, they would have what? Said, these are our installations, this was the job, this is what it was, so on and so forth, this was the date of the installation, or at least I would. So you would have some credibility, like, man, these guys really know how to handle their stuff. Okay? And then LX Audio home theater installation services include. See, all this stuff, it all sounds exactly the same. Here's some stuff. We're going to put a TV there and some speakers and components there, and you're going to be able to hear it from all over the place, and here's what it looks like, and it all looks exactly the same. There's a TV there. There's some speakers there. You can hear it from over here. You can control it from over there. I still don't have a clue by looking at this deal the distinguishing advantage between any of these companies. Most likely, I'd probably maybe call the guys that look a little bit better. But other than that, they all do the exact same thing. It's called menu-style advertising. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you say we all sell burgers and they all have pickles, onions, and ketchup and mustard on it with a sesame seed bun, what's the distinguishing advantage? There isn't one. So if there's no distinguishing advantage, guys, what's the point of going to you versus somebody else? All right? So if you look at the competition that's out there and you look at your own types of advertising and you look at the things that we discussed analytically, what's important to the marketplace, what are the problems that they're having, the distinguishable advantages that they want to see, and then you look at those ads, they don't hold any of those advantages whatsoever. They're not clearly distinguishable by any stretch of the imagination. So that being said, there's nothing for a client or a prospective client to actually grab onto and spend some time with. You want them to be able to look at the ad, have credibility in the design and the fonts and the pictures and everything else, and then in the message and the headlines be able to say, you know what, this organization I think has the ability to do what I want. Then get into the body copy and read more and be convinced that these guys actually know how to get done what I want, or they're credible enough that I can have an open conversation with them and they're not going to take advantage of me. Okay? So let's talk about writing powerful ads. We're going to talk about strategy. We're going to talk about headlines and body copy, and then we're going to talk about design a little bit. Okay? Not too much. Advertising strategies. If you're not familiar with what advertising strategies are, obviously that's a play off of my name, Ed. And I've got 14 advertising strategies. If you're going to build advertising and marketing, it has to be based on these 14 strategies. These are the things that drive the marketplace. And depending on what kind of industry that you're in, retail, professional, service-oriented, or wholesale manufacturing distribution, each one of those types of industries, those 4 industries, have between 3 and 4 of these 14 strategies that will work every single time. All of these 14 advertising strategies will work with every single industry, but 3 to 4 of them will work without fail in one of those industries, okay? We're going to talk about in your industry a problem solution strategy, warning strategy, and advice strategy. All right, problem solution is very simple. Your clients or prospective clients have a problem, and you have a solution. And when you write the advertising, you disclose the problem in detail, You disclose the solution in detail, marry the two. They can draw the conclusion that you have answered that clearly and definitively, and therefore they come. Okay, I'll show you some examples of headlines, things that are standard that have worked and will work forever no matter what kind of business that you run. All right, so problem solution, here's the thing about it. You have to have a very identifiable problem that's very easy and known by the marketplace, whereas in your case, you do. Somebody wants to buy AV, they want to install a system, and they don't have the foggiest clue what they're supposed to do, where anything is supposed to go, what the structure framework looks like, and what components they're supposed to buy, and how much they're supposed to pay for it. They don't have any idea. So they have a known problem while they're out there shopping. The thing is that you guys all have a solution, but your advertising doesn't make it obvious that you do. You're just simply saying, hey, all that stuff you want, we can put it in your house. And the answer to that in a very caustic, smart-ass way is, no shit, Sherlock, that's what you do for a living. You have to understand that's no different than saying, as a person who cuts hair, hey, when you come to us, your hair will be shorter. You know, the distinguishing advantage for getting gas at our place is when you're done, you'll actually have gas in your car. Nobody cares. It's an obvious. It's a no duh. So you got to be a little bit more hard on yourself and think, am I really doing that? Am I coming across that unintelligent in my marketing and advertising? I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying you do, and I'm giving you an option to help that and fix it so that way you don't do that anymore, because that's what the marketplace is saying to you. You just don't happen to hear them saying that. Okay? You don't happen to hear it. But there's an identifiable problem. You have a solution. Make it readily obvious in the marketing, in the advertising, that you actually do have a solution to the problem, which is, I don't know what I'm supposed to put in my house or my office. It's really as simple as that. You don't have the foggiest clue. And you can tell somebody, if you don't know what you're supposed to put in there, what goes in there, what components go together, so on and so forth, don't talk to sales guys. Here's some information, not to mention it needs to be risk-free. And everybody knows when you talk to the sales guy, you're going to get pounded. And we would love to say, all right, we would love to say, no, we want people to call so we can get the lead. It's very self-interested, and you have to realize that you're already battling them because they don't want to call you, because they don't want to spend time on the phone talking to somebody that's self-interested and not interested in customer-centric, and then have 20 of those phone calls still to be confused. In addition to that, you got to remember, people hate to say no to sales guys. Not because they don't want to not buy, it's because they hate confrontation. They don't like it. So they don't want to say, you know what, I appreciate that, but can you just send me something? And the problem with people sending people material in collateral is that none of it actually does anything. You've got to remember, part of what drives big amounts of market share is giving people the ability to have collateral that gives them the information they need to make the decisions on their own. Guys, it's so much better when you can send something to someone and they can figure the whole entire argument out for your organization and what they want in their own time. They'll spend an hour, 2, 3 hours reading that kind of stuff, listening to that stuff, watching that material, but nobody ever does it. None of that information is over. That's one of the things I love about the way Brian has run his organization and started to run it from the marketing perspective through here, because he's educating people on the differences of what's going on. Hey, if you're looking for cable, you need to understand that there's differences between cable. There is a price story. There's a reason why prices are this way. And shooting on video, the differences in how people shave copper and how they cheat on all kinds of other areas of components and their quality, that's important to understand. When you put that stuff on video, a guy looks at that and says, yeah, I can see that. Now the decision for someone buying cable from Brian is based on, do I actually really care? And do my clients know? And if you don't care, I don't know that if your clients knew that, I don't think they'd want to do business with you. Okay? But Brian's ability to start educating people on the problems and the fact that Ice Cable has the solution is so obvious now. And once you're there, now the difference is, do I really care if I'm buying quality stuff? And if the people don't really care, then in all reality, they're not technically clients of Ice Cable. And you've got to realize that too. You have your perspective and your kind of your box of clients that you want, your qualifications. So that's the problem solution strategy. The warning strategy is simply this. It's similar to the advice strategy. They're both the same, where people don't have an understanding of what's going on in the marketplace, what things are valuable for them, what things are not, the differentiations between quality and installation and product, so on and so forth. And the decision that they make that's uneducated could actually be fairly damaging to them or cost them. And of course, in this circumstance, the answer is true. If a guy spends $50,000 on an install and it doesn't work like he wants it to, how pissed off is this guy going to be? Pretty pissed off. It's $50,000 or $100,000 or $10,000. Okay, the reality is that. So if he doesn't know, a warning strategy is simply this. It's no different than you yelling out to someone, hey, there's a bus coming right now and it's about ready to hit you because you've got your iPod on and you can't hear. All right, it's a warning. You're out there in the marketplace heralding a warning to them, letting them know if you're not familiar with this stuff, there's a big chance you're going to get screwed. All right? That's what you're trying to tell people. Maybe not quite like that, but at the same time, you're warning them. An advice-oriented strategy is very similar to a warning strategy, but just not as emotionally intense. Advice and warning are similar in that you're trying to say, get someone to avoid getting hit by the bus, but the difference is the warning is you're right in the midst of it, the bus is coming, you've got the iPod on, and you're screaming at them, get out of the way. Advice is sitting down saying to your kids, you know what, guys, we don't put our iPod on and play in the street. Because if you do, the bus. You see the difference? This one's a little more proactive, impending a future potential event. This one is right in the midst of the event, so to speak. We're letting people know the emotional intensity is driven up by the timeline, okay? Very advice-oriented. These are things where you're telling people this is a circumstance that's going to happen or that's about to happen right now, and here's how you avoid it. Let me specifically help you understand how to get out of the way or not allow this to happen to you. Okay? Let me go through some headlines real quick so that way you have an understanding. And I think a lot of times when we go through headlines, you can start to understand what the advertisement would look like or the marketing collateral piece or even the radio ad, the TV ad, or the pitch. If you were standing in front of somebody at a trade show, a prospective client, whether you were on the phone delivering that, it doesn't make any difference, okay? Here's from the problem solution. I've run this headline in almost every imaginable industry you can think of, okay? The three biggest problems everyone has with audiovisual installers and how XYZ, whatever your company is, overcomes them all. I made that headline famous about 19 years ago. And what ended up happening is it was in the plumbing industry, and then it ended up in the copier industry, copier repair, and then plumbing, and then it went to auto mechanics. And in every major city in the United States of America, this ad and some version of it in those three industries, they were everywhere. And the reason why is because I was teaching seminars all across the country, and this thing had about a 72% conversion ratio when people were calling off of the yellow pages. It was rampant everywhere, and so guys would come to the seminars, and they would just automatically just start flipping this in there. It wasn't ever intended to work like that. It just so happened to be that it just worked. And so guys started using it. And if you look at this headline, whether it's on a direct mail piece, an HTML email, the front of your ad, even if you were sitting there on the phone and a guy called you on the phone and said, hey, I'm looking to do an install, I want some distributed audio and video, so on and so forth, and you could say to that person on the phone, if I was taking a call like that, and let's say I was talking to Bill, here's the CEO in the front room, and Bill's out of the entertainment industry here in LA, and I would say to Bill, you know, Bill, I can appreciate that. Here's something that you might want to understand. The three biggest problems that everybody has with AV companies and in trying to put together a system like that are 1, 2, and 3. And if I started walking through that because I'd done some customer analytics, Bill would be sitting there saying, yeah, that's exactly the problem I have. And then I could, after that, he's agreeing with me, and we're now connecting on the fact that I know his problems, which is creating a different kind of credibility relationship with me, which also preassumes that I already know the answers to them. I could say to Bill, and you know what, Bill, what's interesting is that in one of the last reports that came out in one of our industry magazines, and I could just rattle off a statistic that proved that there was a significant amount of distrust in the industry working with people in our service industry, and say to them, we do something at XYZ company that's very, very, very different. And it's important for you to understand, because if you don't, there's an 85% chance, Bill, that you're going to get taken advantage of. Even if you've bought TVs before and you've talked to Best Buy and you've been online, there's just some things that people don't know. For example, we do 1, 2, and 3. And then Bill, after I would have that probably 2-minute conversation on the phone with Bill, I can assure you, having trained hundreds of thousands of salespeople all around the world about this kind of stuff, I can assure you, Bill, as a prospective client, would say, man, can I come over to the office, or you can come over and talk to me, because that's so different than what everybody else is telling me. Why? Because I'm warning and I'm advising, okay, and talking about problems and solutions with Bill. This not only is a headline that works in an actual ad or marketing collateral piece, it's a headline that's verbiage that you can use on the phone. You don't believe it? Write that process down. I have a script called the 3 Biggest Problems script. If my staff will remind me, and Brian, I'm talking to you because I know you're watching, remind me, and we'll make sure that that script gets up for the download, okay? So that way you guys can start filling that out. All right, let's go to some of the other headlines as an example. A little audiovisual mistake that cost a homeowner $31,000. And then, of course, we start telling the story. Now, you start looking at that, and you say, okay, let's go back to the 3 biggest problems. Say I'm in a conversation once again. I start talking about the problems with my prospect, 1, 2, and 3. And I say, for example, here's one mistake that cost a homeowner we met $31,000. Really? Yeah. And then you tell the story. And it validates what we were just talking about. See how this stuff transfers into just about everything that you're doing, whether you're on the phone, whether you're in a pitch right there in an office with somebody or in someone's house, or if it's in your collateral or on your website. All right, here's another one. The #1 most common goof in buying a home automation system. These are all headlines based on hot points that are important to the client. Okay? The next one, these are warning oriented, okay? This is a warning orientation. This is a warning oriented. Actually, this is advice oriented. This is a warning. A dozen dirty tricks of home automation dealers. Some are totally undetectable unless you know what to look for. Now imagine if you're sitting there, okay? We've got a guy named Chuck in the room, the CEO of a long-time standing roofing company. All right? Now, if we were to transfer this over to roofing, we could say, listen, there's a dozen little dirty tricks. And if Chuck was on the phone or one of his sales guys were on the phone with a prospective client, he could say to them, you know what? If he was talking to Mr. Prospect, here's some things that really chap us in the industry, especially the good roofing companies. There's about a dozen little dirty tricks that roofing companies will do, and they're completely undetectable unless you know what to look for. We see them all the time, and the problem is there's an 85% chance that you're getting taken advantage by at least 6 of them. And regardless of whether you do business with us or not, if you understand them, that won't happen to you. And the prospect, if Chuck were to say that on the phone, the prospect would be completely ingratiated to them, which would do what? Lend for a longer, more honest and open conversation with Chuck's company, which would most likely end up in a sale. See, most of the time, guys, it's not that you can't do the job correctly, it's that you can't have the conversation. If I can get you to have the conversation correctly, then you'll get the job. We already know that the good dealers, you guys, you can get the job. We know all the CEOs, you can get the job. It's having the conversation that's the problem. Okay? If you can get in front of the client and have an open conversation with the walls down, you'll get the job. All right? Some other headlines. What the home automation dealers don't want you to know. You look around the room in fitness. What fitness trainers, don't want you to know? I also run and own and building a fitness company called Zeus Athletics, and it does everything from energy, health-oriented drinks to fitness DVDs to everything under the sun. And it's funny because you walk into an LA Fitness or you walk into any other big gym and you see the trainers in there, and some of them will look like they're in pretty good shape and some of them don't. But you look at those guys and they're out there giving advice to everybody, whether they're 60-year-old people, people extremely overweight, younger people, girls, guys, it doesn't make any difference. And you think, wow, look at those people. What a great job. They're talking to a trainer. That guy must really know his business because LA Fitness or 24 Hour Fitness hired them as a trainer. What you really don't know is they don't have any idea what they're talking about. Okay? So you look at stuff like that, and if you could break down a list, you could say, you know, what fitness trainers or big gyms don't want you to know about their fitness trainers. Now imagine if you were a smaller gym, like in one of my places where I live in Dallas. I live between 3 different cities, and in Dallas I go to LA Fitness, and then there's a gym called Evolution, which is really more of a hardcore gym, but they're struggling. It's more difficult, and as soon as LA Fitness opened up 2 blocks away, 40-50% of their membership was gone within 30 days. Okay, so I talked to the owner and I said, because his trainers are radically different, and so, but you know what? You wouldn't know that. So if he were to advertise, you know what big gyms like LA Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness don't want you to know about their fitness trainers, and he were to write something about that and even record a little piece of video on it here at the show, that would make all the difference in the world for his organization. But because he's just competing on, look how much equipment I have and look at my membership every month, he's going to lose because there's no way in the world he can compete against an organization like LA Fitness or 24 Hour Fitness. He can't. You know, this guy can't replace a tread climber as soon as he needs to, like the other organizations can. There's no way to do it, okay? So that headline is huge for them. Same thing for you guys. What the home automation dealers don't want you to know. What the typical home automation installer doesn't want you to know. Here's the next one. The 3 most dangerous words you could say to your AV sales guy during the sale. Quote, you're the expert, unquote. Okay? Why? Because this is exactly what people who are confused do. I don't really know. You work in the AV department, so obviously you must know. No, he doesn't know. It's like the parent who wants to buy the guitar and the amp for the kid walks into Guitar Center thinking that the guy running around with gauges and crazy hair and shorts that are pants that are too tight, and that's cool. That's what he's supposed to look like. But they think that that guy knows everything about all the equipment in there. That guy doesn't know anything about the equipment in there. He doesn't even own a good guitar or an amp. He's never plugged in all those effects. He's never picked up and plugged and played live or recorded with all those amps and all those mics. None of those guys know. All they do is work off of what their rep says and whatever the promotion is and what they can sell the most because they're based on a point system. And you never think to ask. Oh, obviously, he looks like a rock and roll guitar player, so therefore he must know. Kid doesn't know. He's still playing a $200 piece of crap Mexican Strat. Okay, he doesn't have any idea what that stuff is. And guess what? Most of the time, neither do the rest of these guys. But you know what? The customer doesn't know that, and he doesn't have time to take and spend 3 years to become an expert at what you do. So therefore, he transfers that decision-making ability over to someone who gains any modicum of trust with him, or when he finally runs out of time and gives up and says, I just got to get it done. Okay? So let's go look at each one of these things. Can you take this information, like we talked about, not only headlines and ads, but transfer that into your daily dialogue with your prospects over the phone or in a sales meeting? Absolutely. It's all the same stuff. Okay? Here's another one. 4 critical characteristics to demand from your home automation installer. Does yours do these? And of course, we know what comes next in that ad or in that conversation. If you're talking about someone, you're talking to a prospect, after you've had a lot of these conversations, you can start stringing some of these headlines together and say, listen, there's 4 critical characteristics you need to demand from your home automation installer. Number 1, Mr. Prospect, this. Ask them this. Number 2, this. Number 3, this. You see, you can just keep going on. It doesn't matter whether it's fitness. It doesn't make any difference if it's technology and software development, if it's entertainment, if it's film. It doesn't make any difference. Roofing, car sales, manufacturing. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. These things are standard strategies, and you manipulate the headlines a little bit to fit your organization. Also, by the way, in doing this, we have a full-on ad development class that happens here in LA We'll probably do one next month. If you want to come out to that, you're more than welcome. When you show up there, one of the things that we will give you if you come to that particular class is we'll give you the entire headline, what's called the headline bank. It's got hundreds and hundreds of headlines based on all of these strategies. They're already templatized. Then you'll get the 14 advertising strategies and why they work the way they're, and what organizations and industries they fit, and what are the parameters that make them fit. You'll get that. You'll get the headline bank, and you'll get the scripts that go along with all of them. So there are templatized scripts for writing advertising, marketing collateral pieces, voicemails, radio ads, or even just sales dialogue scripts that they're all templatized. And so the general script is there, and then what you have is you have blanks that underneath the blank it tells you what kind of word or phrase it's looking for, so that way you can customize it literally. Because I've always said that people can't write for crap when it comes to marketing, but they can critique. So if I give them the ability to just kind of fill in the blank, kind of like a Mad Lib sheet, all right, but based on real marketing, then you can fill that in and then look at it and go, okay, let me massage that and wordsmith a little bit, and then in no time you can write amazing material. And so you'll do that, and then in addition to that, what we'll do is we'll give you the advertising mock ad catalog, where I've designed the majority of every type of ad and collateral piece already as a sample of how it's supposed to work, the fonts, the picture selections, where things go, so on and so forth, and we give that to you, so that way when you're working with someone, whether it's our agency or not, you've got an ability to go, you know what, this ad needs to be power oriented, I've used this script to write it, and it needs to look kind of like this one. And then you can take that and send it to somebody, and they can literally knock that off, and you don't have to worry about having an agency design the kind of crap that we've shown up here, which is ridiculous, okay? It's just an absolute waste. It takes the designer the same amount of time to design a good piece as a crappy piece. But without any direction, you will for sure get the crappy piece. So at least when you're at the advertising workshop, you'll get all those tools so you're automated on your own, and you've got some autonomy and you've got some level of expertise. Those are just gifts that we give everybody that shows up. Anyway, so 4 critical characteristics to demand from your home automation installer. Does yours do these? All right. Here's another one. Make sure your AV company complies with the 17 Code of Ethics and Competency points. You could go down, if you really wanted to take somebody to the mat, it doesn't have to be 17, it could be 9, 11, 21, whatever, and say, here are all the things that should be critical, okay, inside of an installer's industry in order to come out with the right kind of product and the right kind of installation quality. Okay? Make sure that your AV company complies with the 17 Code of Ethics and Competency points, and that's the same thing transfers over into a conversation. Same thing in a conversation. If you were talking to a prospect, you could say, once again, Bill, one of the things you've got to remember is you've got to make sure that your AV company complies with the 17 Code of Ethics and Competency points. That way you know for a surety. And in fact, Bill, before they give you a bid, here's that worksheet of all those points with an explanation, and basically photocopy this off and tell all your AV guys that are bidding on the job, when you return your bid, return it with all these points checked off in the attached documentation that I need. And the reason why you do that as an organization, say for your organization, is because you know that the other competitors won't be able to pull it off. Even if they could comply with it, they don't have the documentation to validate it. So when a prospect hands that off to a guy looking for a bid, looking to bid a job, and he can't comply with that, guess what happens? He looks like he's lying. It just cuts him out of the running. And that's what you're trying to do. Load your customers and your prospects up. Give them the arms to go hunt bear and kill your competition for you. It's just more leverage. Why try to battle it out yourself? Give them the tools to destroy your competitors themselves, and then you'll be the only guy left standing. And because you're the one with the credibility that gave them the information, obviously you are credible, and so therefore you'll get the job. And I built, like I said, I've worked with about 72,000 plus organizations over the last 21 years, and growing and growing and growing and growing. Okay? This stuff works. Another headline. 3 quick questions will reveal any AV company's operating philosophy. Ask them and save money. Now, I will say this. The funniest thing I ever used this headline for was an online dating program, which was actually here. So I was asked to write marketing for that. And I said, here's 3 quick questions that will reveal any, and then you insert guy or gal's true relationship intentions. And there's a lot of downloads for that, okay? So this stuff works all the way across the board. It doesn't matter where you put it, okay? It's all based on human, okay, on human motivations. 3 quick questions will reveal any what? Any roofing company, any software development company, any management company, okay? Any entertainment agent. So if you're an actor or an actress here in LA and you're looking for an agent, you can say, here's 3 quick questions that will reveal any entertainment agent's operating philosophy or business philosophy or client philosophy. Ask them, save money. Ask them, save what? Save your career, save your whatever. It doesn't matter. See, you can eliminate some of these live operative words and switch them for your industry. Okay? And that's another thing that goes right into a conversation. Right into a conversation. You guys are consulting your prospective clients. So this kind of information can roll right into a conversation. Okay? What's our time frame right now? We start at 11, we're where? Okay, good. So we're right there. All right, so here's headline and body copy that we're putting together for this particular ad that we're going to show you. Confused about home theater, distributed audio, home automation, security, components, etc.? Before you talk to a pushy components peddler, talk to an actual industry professional. Now, if you guys think about that, if I was reading that from a radio ad standpoint, think about that. Okay, if I just said, hey, if you're confused about home theater, distributed audio, home automation, security, components, or things like that, before you talk to a pushy components peddler, talk to an actual industry professional. If I did it just like that and kept rolling on, are we right into a radio ad for 30 or 60 seconds? Are we right into a TV commercial? Absolutely. Okay? Most people, when they start to look at installing any kind of system, end up talking to self-interested salespeople who represent specific brands that they carry, but lack the overall industry background and experience to know how everything all comes together for your benefit. Our approach at XYZ Company is different. We talk objectives and budget first. Then we build several different strategic approaches to meet those individual goals so you are not cheated or shortchanged on your system. There's never a reason to oversell like the typical approach in this industry. You can always get what you want, and most times even better than you originally thought. Talk to us. We're tuned in to what works. Do I have a 60-second radio ad? Do I have a 60-second TV ad? Can I cut that into a 30-second TV or radio ad? Do I have that conversation as an on-hold message? Absolutely. And it goes right into a print ad. Okay? Remember, guys, when it comes to design, brand is critical. You can download one of my books that's free called Only the Brands Will Survive. Go to CEOgrowthteam.com, and you'll see it there under free books. Just click on that nav and put in your email address, and they'll send you the e-copy version of that, and then you're good for there. Obviously, we teach that material here. Okay? Design strategies, we won't cover that too much. Let me give you an understanding when taking that type of headline and that information and putting that into an ad. Okay? Confused about home automation systems before you talk to a pushy components peddler, talk to an actual industry professional or a trade person. Okay? So in doing that, we take that information, we start slamming that into everything that you can possibly imagine. All right? So that way, all of a sudden, we go from what we were looking at before, which is $199, $250, $350, so on and so forth. We install this. Here's some metal mounts, which nobody really knows what that is or if that's good or bad, to something that absolutely is customer-centric, delves into the marketplace and attaches itself directly to what the marketplace is interested in the most, okay, and then gives them resolutions for that. Goes along with the advertising strategies that we've talked about and will drag people in to spend time with that marketing piece, get the phone to ring, have people start putting information to you on the email and on your website, and you'll start driving more traffic. You'll distinguish yourself from your competition, and that will become very obvious, okay, to the marketplace that you're the one to do business with. That's what that's all about, okay? So I appreciate you guys working with us today and watching and tuning in. Obviously, this information will be available online in audio and in video format. You've got the downloads that we've talked about. And in addition to that, you've got the other information that is on the website that you can get. So every time that you tune into this material, it's not just information we're pushing out to you. There are examples, there's worksheets, there's collaboration that we're going to help you grow your business. And this is something that whoever's invited you, whether it's Brian at Ice Cable or some of the organizations, these guys spend a lot of money in order to help produce this type of product and format for you guys. So please, once again, we appreciate you being on, and thanks so much. I'm Edward Earl. We are live at CGT Studios on the set of Grow. We'll see you next time.